recording? Great. All right. Welcome. My name is Claire Nickerson. I'm here with my colleague Heather today from Fort Hays State University in Hays, Kansas. We are talking about using AI for teaching and information literacy. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. Your audio and video are currently turned off. We are holding questions until the end, just due to time. So please keep them off until then. If you'd like to connect with other participants, feel free to do that in the chat. I see we already have some great introductions going on, and there are the conference hashtags. Did we start the recording? Yes. Heather.
All right. And we also wanted to take a moment to recognize and thank San Jose State University and the School of Information, as well as futureofai.org for their support and the opportunity to present to you today.
Great. Before we get started, I just wanted to share that we do have here at the Forsyth Library a generative artificial intelligence guide. So if your library doesn't have a LibGuide yet on this topic and you'd be interested in seeing ours, that is the link, and perhaps Heather would be kind enough to stick that in the chat while I go on to talk about locating resources. So due to time constraints, we are talking about information literacy within the model of locate, evaluate, use, and not within the model of frames, just because there are fewer things to talk about. So for each of those three topics, locate, evaluate, use, we'll be talking briefly about general use AIs and how they're shaping up for that. Thank you, Heather. And then we will talk about specific tools for that. So general use AIs for locating specifically scholarly articles, they're still not great, but getting better. I put together some examples based on an actual research question we recently received from a student via live chat, on the premise that if a student would ask us this via live chat, they might also ask this of a generative AI platform. Can you help me find scholarly articles about suicide risk in adolescents that were bullied in school? So ChatGPT, still not great for this. It sometimes hallucinates articles and sometimes it offers advice, but no articles. In this case, I've chosen to highlight a response where it did offer articles. However, this first article that it offered, it's not a real article. This is a real journal, seems promising. Whereas, the second article that is offered, this is the real title of an article, and the journal is actually correct. However, the authors and years are incorrect. So we can see it doesn't quite have the concept yet. Google Gemini is a little bit better. It offers tips for searching for scholarly articles, which might be helpful for students in terms of knowing where to look. In this case, it suggested looking at scholarly databases. Obviously, it doesn't know what databases we have here at FHSU, but it's recommended, some of the major vendors that might be helpful. And then sometimes it does also suggest specific articles, and they are, in my experience, always real, but not always scholarly. Like this second one from the CDC, it's a reliable article. I wouldn't object if a student used it, but it's not scholarly. In terms of the general use AIs, the one that I found was the best for locating scholarly articles at the moment is Microsoft Copilot, perhaps because it started off connected to the internet and offering footnotes. So in this case, it's offered us some articles. I did look at all of them. They are all real articles. Most of them, I think 3 out of 4 of them, were open access. And it's still probably not a good place to start for students, just because there are potentially access issues. Like I said, this third one wasn't open access. And it might potentially recommend non-scholarly resources, and I'm not convinced that our students necessarily have the ability to evaluate that. And I'm going to turn things over to Heather to talk about specialized tools for locating.
Thank you. All right, so I really like the phrase specialized tools because in my opinion that is what generative AI is, and something that we need to continuously kind of uh, express to our students. This is and to those that are like a little hesitant of and worried about generative AI doing the work for students, this is a tool. You know, every toolbox has a special purpose. Uh, so here are our tools that um, geared specifically towards locating information resources. Okay, so Cite AI. This is a Brooklyn-based organization that helps researchers better discover and understand articles through their smart citations, citations that display the context and describe whether the article provides supporting or contrasting evidence. It is a paid, it does cost money. I haven't explored it as much as I would a free platform just because I don't want to pay for it. Um, one thing I do that does make me consider whether or not, you know, it might be worth it is the fact that it has a plugin for Zotero, so it'll make it easier to keep track of how articles in your in your collections are cited. You can see um, which ones have been supported, disputed, and then mentioned by other mentioned in other journals. All right, next slide. And the next one, this next one is researchrabbit.ai. This is a no-cost platform. It allows you to develop collections and just expanding your research. So this does have a Zotero integration, and you are able to search articles and develop collections based on the subject matter, authors, the particular journal, and just see how they are interconnected. Um, Searching is very easy. You can enter title, keywords, DOI, and it really kind of helps take research to the next level. The mind map tool is particularly my favorite just because I am a visual person. And if you haven't used Research Rabbit before, it is not a database. You're not going to get it's not going to give you access to any particular article, but it will show you kind of just how they are networked.
Right, we ready to talk about evaluating? All right. So general use AIs are fairly good for evaluating articles. Of course, they're good at summarizing, and they're also good at evaluating, especially if you give them a role and criteria to use. So here's an example of just a very short prompt. Obviously, you can get very into prompt engineering and provide an extremely long prompt with a lot of details. But here's the one that I used. You're a professor, and I'm a student. Based on this abstract, can you help me evaluate whether this article would be a good source for a paper I'm writing on topic using the GRAP test, which of course is a test that a lot of academic librarians teach. So ChatGPT it applied the criteria and made the recommendation that the student should supplement this source with more recent research, because I did feed it an abstract of an article that was published in 1995, and it recognized that that was potentially an issue. Google Gemini also applied the criteria, but it was more succinct. It gave me, just brief bullet points. And also, I wasn't able to fit the entire response on this slide, but it then provided an overall assessment of the article that said, this article is a little bit old, and there's a potential selection bias in the study participants. And it then gave me some recommendations for moving forward, like look for more current articles, look for articles in specific fields, use specific databases, although it recommended Google Scholar being a Google product, which maybe is not what I would recommend as a starting point. But overall, pretty good. And then Microsoft Copilot was definitely the most concise. And then it also provided a summary of the outlook on the article at the bottom. So all three of them correctly identified that the age of the study was an issue. It also noted that the abstracts that I provided, of course, didn't include information about the authors. And then it says, if you can verify the credibility of the authors and determine that the age of the article doesn't diminish its applicability to your topic, it could be a valuable source for your paper. And then remember to cross-reference with more recent studies. So all three of them did a decent job of applying the criteria. And then I'll turn things over to Heather to talk about specialized tools.
I think you're on mute, Heather.
Yes, I am. Just assume that everything that I said was completely brilliant. Anyways, these are the tools that we have earmarked as being great for the evaluation part of the research process. So first off is Humata. So Humata is a PDF summarizer. It will, you are able to highlight the text and it will kind of sum up the article and point to where exactly it got that information from. This is a free AI platform, and you are able to ask follow-up questions to kind of help summarize further. So the next tool we have is Explain Paper. So this is also free. This one, it's has both a free version and also paid options. So the free version is powered by ChatGPT, and it allows you to upload a paper, and then you are able to highlight sections of the paper, and it will generate an explanation based on what you've highlighted. And so as you can see in the screenshots, the paper has been uploaded, and the section that was highlighted kind of explains that particular algorithm. And then there's an option below to ask a follow-up question to get further information. Explain Paper does have a chat feature, but that's kind of part of the paid upgrade. This is very helpful for longer articles or papers with very dense content. And then I will hand it back over to Claire to discuss use.
Yeah, great. So for using resources effectively, general use AIs are good at rewriting things, but if you are requesting them to give you feedback to enable you to rewrite yourself, you have to be very explicit. So I gave all three of the platforms that I tested this prompt. I'm a graduate student writing an IRB application to conduct a survey as part of my Introduction to Data course. I do teach an Introduction to Data course, and so I asked it to please provide suggested edits for the following introduction that actually one of my students wrote for the IRB application, and I did use this with permission. So I had a student who was interested in doing a survey about electric vehicle adoption and perceptions thereof. And here are the responses that I got. So ChatGPT just rewrote the paragraph and provided no justification or guidance, even though I did ask for suggested edits. I wasn't explicit about like, I want suggestions and not like actual edits. And so that maybe was something that I would want to change in this prompt. Copilot also rewrote the paragraph, but at least it provided, some justification, albeit with very little detail, that it wanted to eliminate repetition and improve flow. Didn't explain how it was planning to do that. The best general AI for this prompt was Google Gemini, which did eventually offer a suggested rewrite of the paragraph, which is not on here because it was at the bottom of the response. But first, it suggested actions that the student could take themselves. So I found that the most helpful. So it suggested strengthening the research question, clarifying the methodology, and focusing the purpose, which is more the sort of input that I would like my students to be receiving. So in terms of specialized tools, I'm assuming everyone is already familiar with Grammarly, so we're not going to go over that, but just be aware that it is a tool. I wanted to start with talking about an app called Hemingway, which helps students to improve the clarity of the writing by pointing out sentences that are overly flowery or in passive voice or otherwise hard to read. There is also a paid version that helps with rewriting. But I think if your goal is for students to do their own writing and just to get some input, this is a great way for them to do that. You can see it uses a highlighting system. So it's highlighted the use of adverbs, overly flowery prose, it's highlighted passive voice, it's highlighted sentences that are hard to read and maybe could be shortened up or simplified. Then we have Quillbot. Quillbot paraphrases or summarizes short passages for free. So students can use it to help them practice paraphrasing if that's a skill that they're working on, or summarizing passages from articles, or it could also be used to rewrite their own prose for clarity. And I would recommend the summarizer tool over the paraphraser tool, just because the paraphraser tool it's very literal. It really just rephrases things in new words. And so it might be helpful for students to expand their vocabulary, but I do feel like the summarizer is more useful. It does also have a number of other tools, including a translator and a grammar checker, and there are plugins for browsers and for Microsoft Word. Heather, you want to talk about Descript?
Yes, I wanted to end this by talking about another usage tool that's not necessarily just focused on writing. So Descript is a multimedia AI platform. It is good for people that are doing presentations that are using audio or video. If you have a student that is making a video presentation, they can edit the video using Descript. They can, if they are doing interviews or if you're working on a study, the transcription tool is very useful. And this is another where there's a free version and then there's a paid version. the free version, it just allows you very limited as far as how much time of video contents you're allowed to work with each month. And yes, I think that is I think it's very useful for those that are doing just more interactive presentations aside from papers. All right, so that brings us to the end of our presentation.
So I was gonna say thank you both. I do have a few questions here that were in the Q&A and chat if you're ready for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, I think some of the chat questions were already answered, but I'm going to start with one from Jane Whiteside, and she says, they say, how do you help students select the right resource? Like ask about their project, audience, and grade level?
So we are, this is the short version of this presentation. And so in a longer version that we'll be doing for a different venue next week, we'll be talking a little bit more about teaching students how to write effective prompts. But there is in our, escape from this. In our slide deck, which I believe somebody had asked for it, there is information about the CLEAR model for prompt engineering. We had hidden that slide just due to time, but this is a great model for maybe teaching students how to incorporate those questions into their prompts. Heather, do you have anything to add to that?
Sorry, I was in the middle of trying to put all of the links to our platforms on the chat. Yes, we do. Just as far as recommending to students, we direct them to our guide, but as far as assisting with prompts, I try and I just try and guide them through their research question and take them through like the same steps as they are developing their own um, as if they are developing their own topic. Just that way they aren't so intimidated and using what they know and the steps that they've already taken beforehand.
Okay, I have another question. How much personal data is asked of participants when they sign up for these free AI tools, like the Site AI and Humata?
So for Humata, let me get back to my notes. For Humata, you are just able to, it really is just kind of uploading your paper or the article. Let me pull it up. And with Site AI, it will not let you do anything until you have agreed to like the 7-day, the like week-long trial. But there is like an account setup process.
Okay, thanks. And then are there any copyright issues when uploading these PDFs, articles to these AI evaluation tools?
I can tackle that. I am also a copyright librarian. So I would say as long as you are not including the entire article, it is probably a fair use. And I can go through the fair use factors just really quickly because I think we have like a minute left. It is not for profit, personal use. It doesn't really have an effect on the market for the article because people can't access the article through the platform. It is a published resource. I'm going to stop there for time.
No worries, thanks. We have another question. How have you been integrating these tools into your own IL instruction? Have you offered workshops for students on using these tools?
I've been incorporating it very briefly into my information literacy instruction because obviously I don't want to replace the skills that we're already teaching students with this, but I have been suggesting just a couple of ways that students could use it. Like, for instance, recently I was teaching students how to write good research questions, and then I had them run their research questions through a generative AI tool to get some feedback on that before they submitted their research questions to their instructor. How about you, Heather?
I have to admit, I am just like a late adopter when it comes to new technology. So I have not been incorporating it in my instruction. Um, I I do suggest it when I am collaborating with faculty in my liaison departments, and um, I feel like I still need more work to do with the various AI platforms before I can um, really go to a student and give them a full recommendation, because they're going to come at me because I worry that they're going to come at me with questions that I'm not going to that I'm going to be like, the standard, like, I don't know, let me get back to you.
Okay, then I think here is another one. Have you found a good tool for actually evaluating content? Tools that move beyond summarizing or explaining.
Not a dedicated tool, no.
No, I haven't.
And then I think one last question, since we're about out of time. We have, how do you spend time talking about AI in your typical library instruction sessions? I think you touched on this a little bit briefly already, but this person said, I find it's hard to add it on top of typical topics like our library website and the database.
Yeah, I've been asking instructors ahead of time, like, do you want me to talk about AI? Because as someone pointed out in the chat, not all instructors allow the use of AI. And depending on what their policy is, they might allow it in different ways.
I'm pretty much on the same boat. I had a discussion just about emerging technologies last spring, and there are still several professors that are very cautious about AI. Like, they know, um, they knew of its growing popularity. They know it's something that can't be avoided, but they're still hesitant to like really encourage students to use it.
I don't know if you caught this last question. I worry I'm going to struggle. Oh no, sorry, it's it's jumping around here on me. Um, I worry about going to struggle with how to talk about these tools with students. The way you search in them seems very different than how you conducted database research. What process do I teach to?
At the moment, I wouldn't recommend searching using the general tools. Heather, I know you spent more time with Research Rabbit. What do you think?
Um, well, we've had discussions about Research Rabbit that's for for undergrads and students that are really kind of just getting started in research. That is not a platform that they will really get a whole. I think it will overwhelm them more than anything. Um, when it comes so with with students that are doing like that are in very research heavy majors, or grad students, that is that is a platform that I would recommend to them. But in general, when it comes to incorporating AI, I kind of just use it as um, kind of I tell them to lean more towards the generalized AI as far as I actually recommend as far when it comes to keywords and developing search terms if they're having trouble finding something. It was just like, okay, well, you can use this platform to come up with um, different other terms based on your research question, and that's kind of like a low stakes way to kind of dip their toe into using AI for research.
All right, I think that's about as much as we have time for. So thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have additional questions, I did put our contact info in the chat.
Thank you very much for